we're going to be doing, what are we going to be doing? No. Hi guys, and welcome to Motivation and Makeup Monday. My name is Nancy Diaz. If you're new, welcome. If you're coming back, thank God. I'm happy to have you here today. If you are interested in personal development and motivation and you love makeup as well, let's rock and roll. Today I will be talking about my experience with a seminar that Tony Robbins does that's called Unleash the Power Within. And it's a 4-day immersion seminar, so there's a lot of topics that are covered. But for today, I just wanted to talk about living an extraordinary life and what that means and how can we create it and what are the things that stand against us having an extraordinary life. So he describes it as a life of meaning, of joy, filled with happiness, love, passion, success, and fulfillment. Life on your terms. By the way, all the products that I'll be using today will be listed down in the description box. The question is, what creates an extraordinary life, right? What can we do in order to live in that state? And he says that there are 2 states of being. The first one is, he calls it a beautiful state, but it's like a peak state, high energy state. And then the other one is suffering state, which is low energy. So we're gonna talk about the first one. Let me just put on some primer. Okay, so a beautiful state when you focus on what you have instead of what's missing or what you are afraid of. When you decide on a meaning that can be used to help others. And a great example of this is one of the speakers that he had come and speak during the seminar is a guy by the name of Nick Santonastasso. And he is a medical miracle. He was born with no legs, no arms and no legs. And he found a way to give his life meaning. When he was in high school, he became a wrestler, which, defined the odds right there. And then he went on to become a motivational speaker, and he speaks all over the world, carrying the message of acceptance and positivity and pushing your limits. Tony says, we all get what we tolerate. Don't accept our limitations. We are more than our minds. We have the power to push through our limitations, and Nick is a perfect example of that. Our minds and our limiting beliefs is what a lot of times gets in the way of us being able to live a fulfilled life, or on being able to live on that next level. So he says also, in order to live in a beautiful state, focus on the present instead of the past. And that one kind of is like a no-brainer. We all know that we should be doing this. There's a saying that goes, if you have one foot in the past and one foot on the future, you're pissing on the present. And another one is like, it says it's called the present because it's a gift, right? Every day that we get to wake up and do the things we do, go to work, spend time with our kids, this is all, we take it for granted, and we forget that it's a gift. And when we think that we have problems, remember this guy Nick that was born with no arms and no legs, and he still manages to give his life meaning and goes out there and helps other people. So focus on the present instead of the past or the future. Focusing on the past and all of the things that we regret or that we wish we had done differently, or things that we should not have said or done or not done. All of this is just self-defeating. It serves no purpose. And then at the same time also living in the future, kind of imagining the worst possible outcome. All we're doing is kind of, all these feelings are just anxiety causing. And then the next thing he says is focus on what you can control rather than the things you can't control. I can only control myself I have no control over anyone else. I can only control my thoughts, my emotions, my reaction to things, but I cannot control anyone else just in the same way that I can't control the weather. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with, especially in relationships, especially in romantic relationships. I see that a lot. I'm not in one right now. I've been single for 5 years, so I don't have any fresh examples that I can use because it's been so long. But I know that a lot of times as women, and again, I'm speaking for myself, we tend to sometimes get into a relationship kind of seeing these red flags sometimes, but we always think, okay, it's okay, you know, I'll fix them, I'll change them, you know. And more often than not, it turns out that no, we can't change someone. And that's one of the lessons I've learned over the years, which is why I'm probably still single 5 years later. That's what I used to do every single time I got into a relationship, and those red flags that I ignored at the end, you know, usually turned out to be the things that ended the relationship. For example, like if your values are not aligned, and we know that that's a big deal at the beginning, but you know, when you're in a relationship at the beginning, everything is, you're in bliss. And so all these other things, we want to kind of just, you know, quiet them down. We don't want to listen to them. And then, so anyway, we can't control other people. We can only control or change ourselves. Now, he says there are 3 things that create suffering. The first one is the feelings of loss, due to expectations. We have sometimes expectations from other people, or even expectations of ourselves a lot of times that are not realistic, and so we experience that sense of loss because these things did not come into fruition. The second one is the feeling of less, feeling of I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I don't have a college degree, all these things, all these disempowering feelings. The third one is the feeling of never. This will never happen for me. I'm never going to achieve that goal. I'm never going to meet my soulmate. I will never be able to have children. I'll never be able to buy a house. All these nevers are things that cause suffering. And then he says suffering comes from focus on ourselves. In AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program that I'm in, talks about when we are suffering is because we are focused on self. And they say the way to take care of that is to get out of self and go help someone else. And I have put this to practice. And I can tell you that it really, really does. When we are just stuck on self, on, you know, me, what's hurting me, what's creating this suffering for me, it's all me. And when you decide to take that focus and put it on helping someone and getting out of self, then the suffering stops. He also says our brain is designed for survival, not to make us happy. It is our job to make ourselves happy. He says the mind and ego is the survival brain. So the way I understand it is our default is to just survive. Our brain's responsibility and its main goal is like fight or flight, to protect us, to make sure we survive. The brain is not concerned with making us happy. So he says this is something that we need to work on consciously, like, you know, being aware and working towards that, because it's not something that's going to happen naturally, because our brain was not built that way. And I thought that was so interesting, and you know, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I know there are some people, and I've always wondered, you know, there's some people, and you've probably met someone like that or have someone like that in your life, where no matter how many bad things are going on in their lives, they manage to always have a positive outlook. They always seem to be happy. They always, seem to just not let life weigh so heavy on them. And I just always wondered about people like that. It just seems to be, that's their nature. And for people like that, I mean, that's awesome. But for a lot of us, that doesn't happen naturally. We have to, make the effort in order to not default into our innate state, which is not happiness. So I can speak for people like myself who are not happy by default. I'm the opposite. I am unhappy by default. And a good example is like for people who see the glass half full, and some of us see the glass half empty instead of half full. So I guess that would be a good analogy. Tony says, stay in your head and you're dead. And it's funny because in AA, that's one of the things that they always talk about also. When we are stuck in self, we are stuck in our head, and we're probably just going around and around, bringing up all the things that are going wrong, all the things that are not working out, all the things that we failed to do, and then we take a bat and beat ourselves up, and it goes on and on and on. That's my brain. That's my brain. And so for me, it takes a conscious effort to get out of that mode. And so it is our job. It is our job to make ourselves happy. So what is the antidote to end suffering? What would that be? The first one is appreciate and enjoy. He says, trade your expectations for appreciation. Appreciation helps get out of that lost state. It is appreciating the things that we do have. And when we put these high expectations on things or on people, we really are just kind of setting ourselves up in a way. Number 2, he says learn and grow. And this is something he feels really strongly about. He feels that if we're very much like plants. I think he used that comparison. Maybe not, maybe that's just my comparison, but he says if we're not learning and growing, it's like a plant that stops thriving and stops growing and then ultimately dies. So we're the same. Learning and growing expands us, and it makes us want to, it kind of gives us more purpose to continue learning and sharing that knowledge and contributing. These are all the feelings that kind of give our life a deeper meaning, which is why it is so important to continue to learn and grow. Whether it's just personal development, like what the journey that I am on now, or if it's learning a new skill, or if it's related to your job. In every single area of our life, there is always room for growth. We never stop learning. And I hope I can continue being open to everything that's out there. There's just so much that we can learn and take from and apply to our lives to make our lives more fulfilling. Okay, and the next one after learn and grow is love, give, contribute. It's the same idea of getting out of self, contribute to a cause, contribute your time, contribute by making a donation. That feeling of you're giving back is important. He uses the example of some people that have achieved everything that they could want in life. They're rich, they're famous, they're popular, but yet they're not fulfilled. And there's a quote that he loves, and he says, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." And that's one of the things that if that part of our lives, if we're not contributing, loving, giving back, I guess that's what creates kind of like that hole that void rather. There's a spiritual void. Then he said the next one is decide not to suffer. Make that kind of shift, make that conscious decision to shift your thinking, to see the world instead of from a lacking way, to see it as of abundance all around. And if that is not your natural state, then it means making that conscious choice to make that shift, to decide not to suffer. That was just kind of like a similar way of working it out, the way I kind of work it out in my mind. Then he says anticipate and break the pattern. So knowledge is power, and knowing, for example, like I know how my mind works, so I know what needs to shift, what I need to work on. I know like the signs, I know the things that trigger it. So it is anticipating those things and then deciding to break the pattern. And then the last one, he says end suffering as it arises. Same concept. Oh my God, I love these eyeshadows. This is from Alamar Cosmetics. This is the original one. She has two, but this one, the first one, is my favorite. Especially for spring, these colors are bomb. Okay, so I have a little quote from him here. It says, tell yourself from this day forward, know and remember that who you are at your core is more than anything that could ever happen to you, more than anything you have done or could do. So remember that. Then he gave us some exercises that I can read off the questions to you, and then you can kind of maybe use that as like a thought-provoking questions. Maybe use it as maybe a guide to like journal, if that's something that you do, which is really, really helpful. And there's something cathartic about, writing things down. I have always been encouraged to journal pretty much by every therapist I've ever seen. And I always found it just challenging. But I noticed that the times that I do it, it's only difficult to get yourself to do it, just like going to the gym. And I find that like once I start, then I just love it. And then I just keep writing and thoughts just keep kind of flowing and flowing. Sometimes the thoughts come so quickly that I can't even keep up with it. And then I have come across some entries that I've made like years ago. And then it's interesting to look back at them. And then you can see really how much you've grown or shifted, like with the situations in your life, or the way, just the way you view the world in general, just like your outlook. And it's so interesting to see that, which I think it's why journaling is also so important. You can also, it's a way to measure your growth. The first question is, what does an extraordinary life look like for you at the next level? So if you think of it in terms of your career, your relationships, and family, spirituality, like what would it look like for you if you got to have everything in those areas that you want? The next question is, what's prevented you from creating this extraordinary life in the past? What are the limiting beliefs? What are some patterns that have gotten in the way of you having, this amazing life? So that's something that you can journal on as well. The next question is, what do you need to change now to make it happen? What needs to shift? What do we need to start doing? Incorporating, changing. What kinds of things can we do? What kind of help can we maybe start receiving in order to help us move to the next level? Number 4, what are the most stressful thoughts that consistently show up in your life? What tends to trigger them? A lot of it for me, for example, was fear just in a lot of different areas, like fear of failure, sometimes even fear of success, that's one that I've heard is pretty common. And stressful thoughts are always, there's so much that needs to be done. I don't have enough time to do it. And then I start, trying to focus on 10 million things and moving all in 10,000 different directions. And at the end of the day, having achieved nothing because I was all over the place. And so that right there is just what creates all this like stress and anxiety, and you feel like you just never have enough time to get anything done. For me, that's been huge. The next one is, what are 2 suffering emotions that you overindulge in? That you overindulge in the most, that take away from the quality of your life. Let's see, so if you're, if you think and if you're honest, you're writing it down, so you can be honest, no one is gonna see that. Sometimes we can even create suffering as a way to get attention from a loved one or from your partner. And then that becomes kind of like your home, like your emotional home. Like that's your default on a daily basis. And when we do something often enough, it becomes a habit. And just like everything else, feeling a specific kind of way, or in this case, being in a suffering state for whatever reason, can become just a habit, just like everything else. So what is that? What is it for you? Which are the 2 that are most that you feel prevent you from having a better quality of life? The next question is, what tends to trigger these 2 emotions? So the 2 that we just wrote down, what triggers them? What is it? Is it, I don't know, feeling like you're not loved, feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you're not going to achieve a certain thing? What brings it up for you? And it's different for everyone, and only you know. And of course, there can be more than 2. A lot of times when I journal, it's like almost like going to therapy. A lot of times I've been in therapy, and without realizing, I hear myself say these things, like it's like aha moments. And I hear myself saying them without even realizing that I was feeling it or that I was thinking that way. And then I have that moment of realization. It's like, wow, that's, I didn't know that. And writing things down, journaling has that same effect. Sometimes, like if you just let your pen go and just write and write, you may be surprised at the things that you end up writing. And then when you read it back, it's like, you find it to be so helpful, because a lot of times we find answers that we didn't even know we needed answers for things that we didn't realize we needed answers to. And so what tends to trigger these emotions, the 2 or however many, and then let me just put this on. Okay, and then the last question is, what can you do instead? What are some simple ways you can break your own pattern? What are 2 simple ways you can break your own pattern? And so with that, I will leave you to your writing. Please let me know down below what you thought of this video. Was it somewhat helpful? Don't forget that all of the products will be listed down below in case you're curious. I hope you will consider subscribing and joining the fam. I am here for you on Mondays with another motivation and makeup video. I hope to see you on the next one, and until then, have a beautiful rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.